Welcome, dear listener. As you settle into this quiet moment, letting go of the day's concerns, allowing your breath to deepen and soften, tonight we embark on a gentle journey, a reflective exploration of a most extraordinary paradox that occurs when one begins to awaken to the fundamental nature of existence. It's not a journey that demands effort or striving, but rather an invitation to simply listen, to let these ideas drift over you like soft clouds across a vast, calm sky. We're going to consider what happens when the deepest parts of us begin to perceive the world in a profoundly different way, so different that certain things, once seen as undeniably real, simply fade from view, becoming in essence impossible to perceive in the same manner ever again. Imagine, if you will, the delicate unraveling of a long-held belief. It's rather like the moment a child, filled with wonder and imagination, discovers the gentle secret behind a beloved story, perhaps the discovery of a parent placing gifts under the tree on a quiet, starry night. The innocence once present, that specific kind of innocence, cannot be recovered by an act of will, no matter how much one might wish it. And so it is with this deeper awakening. It's not a loss, but a transformation, a quiet shedding of old veils. Now let me softly assure you that when we speak of an awakened person, we are not referring to some special class of superhuman beings, adorned with halos, speaking in hushed, reverent tones, or possessing extraordinary powers. No, not at all. An awakened person is simply someone who has, with quiet clarity, seen through the intricate game of separation. They are someone who has recognized, perhaps with a gentle sigh of understanding, that the individual self, the ego, this small, seemingly isolated island of consciousness that we so often believe ourselves to be, is a magnificent and intricate hoax. Not a bad hoax, you understand, but a beautiful illusion nonetheless. It is a recognition that brings with it a profound sense of peace, a quiet understanding that allows certain persistent perceptions to simply melt away, no longer holding the same sway over one's experience of life. The very first thing that an awakened person often finds themselves no longer able to see in the old way is the psychological reality of problems. Now let's be very clear about this distinction, allowing its subtlety to gently unfold in your mind. This does not mean that difficulties cease to exist in the world, or that the practical challenges of life magically vanish. Rain still falls from the sky, bodies still experience aches and pains, and yes, bills with their polite demands still arrive in the post. These are simply the facts of existence, the gentle ebb and flow of circumstances. But what profoundly disappears is the psychological weight, the emotional charge, the internal narrative that frames these external facts as problems. You see, a problem in its most fundamental psychological sense only truly exists when there is a perceived separate self, a distinct me, that stands in opposition to what is, to the unfolding reality of the moment. It is the ego, that phantom sense of a separate self, that often whispers, "This shouldn't be happening to me," or "I don't want this." But the very moment you truly realize, not just intellectually, but with a deep embodied understanding, that you are not a separate entity fighting against the vast interconnected universe, that sense of internal opposition begins to dissolve. And as that opposition softens, what were once seen as insurmountable problems gently transform into pure situations, circumstances that simply require an appropriate and often creative response. There is no longer the added layer of emotional turmoil, of internal resistance, that so often accompanies the label of problem. Consider it this way, and allow this image to gently settle in your mind. When your stomach experiences a passing ache, does your stomach itself believe it has a problem? Of course not. It simply is what it is, doing what it's doing, following its intricate biological processes. The sensation is present, undeniably real. But the problem only truly arises when the ego that separates self comes along and layers on the judgment, the complaint, the internal struggle that declares, "This shouldn't be happening to me." It's this mental protest, this insistence that reality ought to be different from what it is, that gives birth to the psychological problem. But when you begin to see through that profound illusion of separation, when you recognize with quiet clarity that you are not something small and contained inside your body, merely looking out at a separate world, but rather that you are an integral part of the whole process itself, the very concept of having problems starts to feel quite absurd, almost laughable, in its previous intensity. It's rather like trying to imagine the vast, boundless ocean, developing a deep-seated neurosis about its waves. Can you picture the mighty Pacific Ocean, stretching endlessly across the globe, lying metaphorically on a psychiatrist's couch, sighing deeply and saying, "Doctor, I have this terrible problem with my waves. They keep rising and falling, and I just can't seem to control them. It's constant, this movement, this change." The very idea, when you truly consider it, is wonderfully comical. And why is it comical? Because the ocean does not separate itself from its waves. The waves are not something happening to the ocean. The waves are what the ocean is doing, its very expression, its movement, its nature, and in precisely the same serene and profound way, an awakened person finds they can no longer see their experiences as problems separate from themselves, because they have come to recognize that they are not separate from the experiencing itself. The feeling of being swept up in the current of life transforms into a realization that you are the current flowing and moving, accepting each ripple and swell as part of your own unfolding. Now, as your mind continues to softly drift, let's consider the second thing that often becomes wonderfully invisible to the awakened person: the overwhelming importance and persistent grip of the past and the future. This can be a rather difficult concept for many people to grasp, for we have been so deeply conditioned since our earliest days to believe that our entire lives are about a continuous movement, a journey from a defined past toward a specific, often anxiously anticipated future. We tend to think of ourselves as creatures with a history, carrying its burdens and lessons, constantly heading toward a particular goal or destination. But this too is seen as just another intricate aspect of the great illusion of separation and linear time. The awakened person, in a sense, comes to live in what could be called the eternal now. Not because they have adopted some rigid philosophical position about the nature of time, or because they are consciously trying to force themselves into a particular way of being. No, it is much more organic than that. It is because they have directly perceived in the deepest recesses of their awareness that the past and the future are, in their essence, nothing but abstractions. Pause for a moment and consider this with a gentle curiosity. The past, when you truly examine it, is nothing more than a memory, a thought, an image, a sensation, all of which are occurring right now, in this very present moment. You are not in the past when you remember. The remembering is happening now, and the future. The future is simply an anticipation, a plan, a hope, or perhaps a fear, all of which are also occurring right now, as present thoughts, present feelings. There is, quite literally, no time except this present moment. It is the only reality we ever truly experience. Everything else is a mental construct, a story we tell ourselves, a projection onto the canvas of the now. When you really begin to understand this, not merely as an intellectual concept that floats in your mind, but deeply in your bones, in the very fabric of your being, the whole often debilitating anxiety about what the future may hold, and the entire often heavy burden of the past, simply begin to evaporate, like mist gently rising from a sun-warmed field. This doesn't mean that one becomes impractical, or suddenly fails to plan for tomorrow's needs, or forgets the lessons learned yesterday. On the contrary, life often becomes far more efficient, more fluid, more effective, precisely because you are no longer wasting precious energy, worrying about abstract concepts or reliving events that are no longer here. You find yourself planning when planning is clearly called for, with a calm clarity. You remember when remembering is useful for current action or understanding. But crucially, you no longer confuse these essential mental activities with some kind of solid independent reality that exists outside of this vibrant, ever-present moment. Your focus sharpens, and your actions become more aligned with the unfolding present. As you continue to relax, allowing your mind to wander softly through these ideas, we come to the third profound shift, perhaps the most encompassing of all. The awakened person can no longer truly perceive a fundamental division between themselves and others. This is a recognition that brings with it an immense sense of connection and quiet liberation. You see, the ordinary perception for many is to live in a state that could almost be described as chronic, subtle paranoia. It's not necessarily an active fear, but a deep-seated, often unconscious feeling of being fundamentally separate from the vast world around us. And because of this underlying sense of separation, we often experience other people in one of two ways, either as potential threats to our well-being, our resources, or our sense of self, or as instruments, tools to be used, perhaps subtly, for our own perceived benefit or comfort. The world through this lens is constantly divided, neatly categorized. There's me and not me, us and them, friends and enemies. This is the psychological architecture of separation, built on the premise of individual isolation. But the awakened person has, with a quiet and unwavering gaze, seen through this intricate self-imposed division. They have recognized that the boundary between what we consider self and what we perceive as other is in its deepest essence entirely imaginary, a construct of the mind. It is not an inherent reality of existence. Consider this gentle analogy: your right hand, when it reaches out, does not perceive your left hand as an enemy, does it? Your heart, beating steadily within your chest, does not regard your lungs working tirelessly beside it as foreign objects or competing entities. No, they are all parts of the same miraculous, interconnected organism, functioning in harmonious concert. In precisely the same way, the awakened person, having truly understood this deeper unity, no longer experiences other people as fundamentally separate from themselves, not at the core of their being. This does not mean, of course, that they lose the ability to distinguish between individuals. They can still very clearly tell the difference between you and me, between one tree and another, at the level of outward appearance, of form, of individual expression. But at a deeper, more fundamental level, they recognize that we are all, every single one of us, intricate processes within one vast, unified field of existence. We are all like individual waves rising and falling within the same boundless ocean, or unique notes sounding within the same grand, unfolding symphony of life. And once you truly see this, once this recognition settles deep within you, you simply cannot go back to the old, often fear-driven, paranoid perspective of chronic separation. It becomes as impossible as trying to see the world through the innocent, undifferentiated eyes of a newborn infant, once you have learned the rich complexity of language and thought. The vision has expanded, and the old, limited view simply no longer holds. And now, as your mind drifts even deeper into a state of quiet contemplation, another profound illusion gently disappears from view for the awakened person: the persistent, often exhausting notion of control. The ego, that sense of a separate self, thrives on the subtle fantasy that it is inherently in control. It loves to imagine itself as the singular author of its actions, the deliberate thinker of its every thought, the definitive decider of its every decision. This belief in personal agency, in being the central puppeteer of one's life, is a comforting narrative for the ego. But when a deeper awakening occurs, one begins to see with a gentle yet undeniable clarity that this is pure mythology. Thoughts, when you truly observe them, do not feel willed into existence. They simply arise spontaneously like bubbles surfacing in water. Decisions often happen, unfolding from a complex interplay of factors, rather than being solely dictated by a tiny internal dictator. Actions occur, they are carried out. But the idea of a little man inside pulling all the levers, consciously orchestrating every single micro-movement, begins to reveal itself as a charming but ultimately false story. For the ego, this can initially be a terrifying realization, because it suggests the very death of the illusion of absolute personal agency. It challenges the ego's cherished role as the primary operator, but for the deeper self, it is also the most profoundly liberating discovery one can make. For it means that you can finally, truly, gently stop trying to control what was never, in fact, truly under your control in the first place. You can begin to relax, to surrender, to gently flow into the spontaneous, intelligent functioning of the universe, of which you are, and always have been, an inseparable, integrated part. Consider this and allow its simplicity to soothe your mind. When you speak, do you consciously and painstakingly arrange each individual word? Do you meticulously plan every detail of the syntax and grammar before uttering a sentence? Of course not. The words, more often than not, simply flow out of you, carried by an unseen current of intention and meaning. And paradoxically, if you try to control them too carefully, too rigidly, you often become tongue-tied. The flow is interrupted, the natural expression hindered. Life, in its broader sense, is exactly like this. The awakened person has discovered that living, in its most profound sense, happens by itself. Just as your breath moves in and out of your body without conscious command, just as your heart beats its steady rhythm without your deliberate intervention, so too does life unfold. And once you've truly seen this, once this insight has settled into your being, the illusion of the controlling ego, with its constant striving and effort, simply cannot be maintained. There is a deep, quiet freedom in this letting go. As your awareness continues to expand and soften, another aspect of ordinary perception begins to dissipate. For the awakened person, the world no longer appears as solid, static, and made up of separate, unchanging things. The usual perception for many is that the universe consists of distinct objects, of solid entities that persist through time, bumping against each other like billiard balls on a cosmic table. We categorize, we label, we define, creating a world of seemingly fixed nouns. But awakening reveals a different, more fluid reality. It reveals that the universe, in its vibrant essence, is not fundamentally made of things at all. Instead, it is made of processes, of continuous movement, of dynamic energies. It is a world of verbs, rather than static nouns, a realm of dancing patterns, ever-changing and ephemeral, rather than fixed, rigid forms. You see, when you gaze upon a majestic mountain, or observe a resilient tree, or look into the eyes of another human being, what you are actually seeing, beneath the surface of apparent solidity, is an incredibly complex, ongoing process, a vibrant whirlpool in the boundless stream of existence. The mountain is not merely a static thing, it is mountainsing, constantly being formed, eroding, shifting, a slow, magnificent process, unfolding over geological time. The tree is not just a tree, it is treesing, growing, absorbing, transforming light and earth into life, always in motion, always becoming. And the person you see, or even yourself, is not a fixed person. They are personsing, a continuous flow of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and interactions, an ever-changing dance of being. Everything is a verb, a happening, an event, a dynamic expression of life itself. And once you truly begin to see the world in this flowing, process-oriented way, you simply cannot go back to perceiving it as a mere collection of static, disconnected objects. The world takes on a vibrant, liquid quality. This perspective is what the ancient Buddhists sometimes referred to as emptiness or void. But it is crucial to understand that they did not mean that nothing exists, or that reality is a blank, empty space. Quite the contrary. They meant that nothing exists in the way we habitually imagine it to exist as solid, permanent, independent entities. Everything in this profound view is empty of a separate, permanent, independent existence. Everything is a temporary, intricate configuration, a fleeting pattern, a beautiful ripple in the endless flux, the ceaseless flow of existence. It is a dance of forms appearing and dissolving, always in motion, always interconnected. This realization, far from being nihilistic, can bring a deep appreciation for the ephemeral beauty of all things. As you allow these thoughts to gently wash over you, let's explore yet another profound shift in perception that occurs for the awakened person, the inability to see the inherent seriousness of it all. Now, this particular insight is often quite misunderstood. People might mistakenly think that awakened individuals must be grim, solemn, or detached, perhaps walking around in a state of melancholy, having seen through all the illusions. But it is, in fact, exactly the opposite. The awakened person is often the one who finally truly gets the cosmic joke. They are the ones who realize that the entire magnificent drama of existence, with all its joys and sorrows, its intricate plots and characters, is in its deepest essence a kind of divine play, what the ancient Hindus lovingly called Leela. Imagine a grand cosmic stage where everything is unfolding, not with a heavy burden of fixed purpose, but with a spontaneous, joyful, often playful creativity. When you realize that you are not, at your core, a separate, isolated self struggling for survival and significance, you simply cannot take yourself quite so seriously anymore. The pressure to uphold a particular image, to constantly prove your worth, begins to lighten. When you see that what were once called problems are merely ripples on the surface of a vast, tranquil consciousness, you cannot take them with the same grinding seriousness. They become part of the unfolding experience, to be met with presence, not with dire internal drama. And when you recognize that the entire world, in its deepest reality, is a spontaneous happening, a continuous flow with no ultimate purpose beyond its own exquisite expression, then the need to grasp, to control, to judge everything with a heavy hand, begins to dissolve. This doesn't mean, of course, that the awakened person becomes irresponsible, or callous, or indifferent to the sufferings of the world. Quite the contrary. When you stop taking yourself so seriously, when the ego's desperate clinging loosens its grip, you can finally truly take life seriously in the right way. You can play the game of life with full intensity, with passion and engagement, while simultaneously knowing. But the awakened person has discovered, with a quiet sense of homecoming, that meaning is not something that needs to be found, or extracted, or deciphered from life, as if it were a puzzle to be solved. Rather, life itself is the meaning. It is its own inherent significance. Consider the simple, profound beauty of watching a dance. When you witness a dance, truly losing yourself in its rhythm and movement, you don't typically ask, what does this dance mean? The dance is not about something else, is it? It simply is what it is, in its vibrant expression, and its meaning, its beauty, its significance, is entirely inseparable from its form, from its movement, from its very being. In precisely the same way, life, in its endless unfolding, doesn't need to mean something external or abstract. Life is meaning. Life is significance. Life is inherent value. And when you realize this, when this understanding settles into your heart, you gently stop searching for some hidden, elusive purpose behind existence. Instead, you begin to celebrate the sheer, breathtaking immediacy of it all, the simple, vibrant fact of being, of experiencing, of participating in this magnificent dance. There's a profound contentment in simply allowing life to be its own profound expression. Here's another fascinating thing that gently shifts for the awakened mind, allowing a sense of spaciousness to emerge, the inability to truly see one's thoughts as personal property anymore. In the ordinary state of consciousness, we are often absolutely convinced that our thoughts are unequivocally ours. We use phrases like my thoughts, my opinions, my beliefs, as if we own them, as if we personally generated them from some inner factory of selfhood. There's a strong identification with the stream of mental activity, but awakening gently reveals that thoughts are, in their essence, simply events that arise spontaneously in consciousness, much like clouds appearing, drifting, and then dissolving in the vast open sky. You don't consciously create your thoughts, any more than you consciously create the weather outside your window. They simply appear, stay for a while, capturing your attention, and then, often just as spontaneously, they dissolve back into the quiet spaciousness from which they emerged. And once you've seen this clearly, once this insight has gently settled within you, you can no longer identify with your thoughts in the old possessive way. You might still have thoughts, of course. Indeed, you may even find that you have more interesting, more creative, more expansive thoughts than ever before, precisely because they are no longer weighed down by the burden of ownership. But crucially, you no longer confuse yourself with them. You begin to recognize yourself as the vast, silent space in which thoughts appear and disappear, not as the thoughts themselves. There's a profound release in realizing that you are the awareness, the witness, the container, rather than the fleeting contents. This offers a deep, quiet refuge. This brings us softly to another subtle, yet profound point, one that can often be easily misunderstood. The awakened person cannot truly see suffering as something that fundamentally should not be. Now, to be very clear, this does not imply that an awakened person somehow enjoys suffering, or actively seeks it out, or becomes indifferent to pain. That is not the essence of this insight at all. What it means, rather, is that they do not add to the inevitable experience of pain the additional, often overwhelming layer of resistance that stubbornly proclaims, this should not be happening. You see, pain, in its rawest form, is an unavoidable part of the human condition. If you possess a physical body, you will, at various times, experience sensations that are unpleasant, uncomfortable, or acutely painful. This is an inherent aspect of being alive in a physical form, but suffering, in its psychological sense, is quite different. Suffering, one could say, is pain plus resistance. It is the raw sensation of pain, compounded by the ego's fervent protest, its insistent demand that reality be different from what it is. It is the internal argument with what is happening. When you learn to fully and deeply accept the present moment as it is, without demanding that it be different, without fighting against its reality, the raw sensation of pain may still be undeniably present, but the psychological suffering, the internal anguish, the emotional torment that so often accompanies that pain, begins to gently dissolve. It's rather like the subtle, yet significant difference between a muscle that is naturally relaxed and one that is deeply tensed. Both can experience sensation, but the tensed muscle adds an extra layer of discomfort, a self-imposed strain, purely through its resistance, its clenching against itself. The awakened person, through a profound understanding, has learned to relax into life, even into its painful, uncomfortable, or challenging aspects. And this deep, quiet relaxation, this letting go of resistance, transforms the entire quality of experience, even when external circumstances remain difficult. There is a deep well of resilience found in this acceptance. As your breathing continues to deepen and slow, let's gently turn our attention to one of the most fundamental anxieties of human existence: death. The awakened person also quietly loses the capacity to see death as the ultimate opposite of life. In the ordinary conventional view, life and death are often perceived as fierce enemies, opposing forces, locked in an eternal, dramatic battle. We cling to life with all our might, and we fear death with an intensity that often shapes our every decision, imagining that when death finally comes, we will simply cease to exist, dissolving into nothingness. But awakening gently reveals that this entire framework, this perceived battle, is fundamentally mistaken, a conceptual misunderstanding. Death, in this deeper view, is not the opposite of life. Rather, birth is the opposite of death. Life, in its boundless, eternal essence, has no true opposite. Life is the ground, the field, the vast and endless current, the eternal now, in which both birth and death appear, like individual waves rising and falling within the same boundless ocean. You are not, in this deeper understanding, simply born into life at a particular moment, only to be abruptly ejected from it at another. You are, in your very essence, life itself, expressing itself through this particular unique form for a finite period of time. And then, at the appointed moment, this particular form gently withdraws back into the greater flow, back into the source, only to express itself again, continuously, in countless other forms, in endless configurations. When you truly begin to realize this, when this quiet understanding settles deep within your being, death becomes no more frightening than, perhaps, gently going to sleep at night. You do not fear sleep, do you? Because you know deep down that you will wake up again, even if you do not consciously remember who you are or what you are doing while you are deep in slumber. And in precisely the same serene way, the awakened person comes to know, not just intellectually, but experientially, that death is simply a return to the source, a gentle dropping of this particular temporary form, but not an annihilation of the essential boundless essence of who and what you truly are. There's a quiet continuity, a gentle unfolding, and now as you drift further into peaceful rest, another subtle but important perception becomes wonderfully invisible: the idea of spiritual progress. This may seem quite paradoxical at first, given how much emphasis is often placed on spiritual paths and journeys, but the awakened person comes to realize that, in a profound sense, there is truly nowhere to go, nothing ultimate to achieve, no distant better state to finally arrive at. Awakening is not a destination found at the end of a long, arduous spiritual path, a summit to be conquered. Rather, it is the quiet, profound realization that you never, in fact, left home in the first place. Imagine, if you will, a person who has misplaced their reading glasses. They search frantically, turning over cushions, peering under furniture, scouring every corner of the room, convinced they are utterly lost and far away. They are engaged in an intense search, a deep striving, but all the while the glasses are simply resting on top of their head. The very moment they realize this, the moment they reach up and find them, they understand with a sudden clarity that the entire search, all the effort and striving, was based on a false premise. The object of their search was never separate from them. It was always there. In precisely the same gentle way, the seeker of spiritual truth often believes they are separate from what they are seeking. They believe they need to become something more, attain something higher, arrive at a different state. But the deeper realization is that you are it. You always have been it, and you always will be it. The divine, the ultimate, the boundless, is not external to you. It is your very nature. This doesn't mean, of course, that life becomes static or dull or boring after this awakening. On the contrary, it often becomes far more vibrant, more interesting, more infused with spontaneous joy and creativity, because you are no longer trapped in the narrow, constricted perspective of the ego, constantly striving and feeling not enough. But there is no longer that persistent internal sense of trying to get somewhere spiritually. No more feeling that you're not quite there yet. You're already here. You've always been here. And here, in this present unfolding moment, is truly all there ever is. There is a deep and quiet resting in this truth. As your mind continues to settle, softening with each breath, another perception gently recedes from view for the awakened heart, the ability to see enemies. Oh, of course, the awakened individual may still recognize that certain actions, behaviors, or systems are harmful, destructive, or unjust, and that they need to be wisely opposed, responded to, or transformed. They may dedicate themselves to preventing cruelty and alleviating suffering in the world, but they no longer see those who commit harmful actions as fundamentally other, as alien beings, or as inherently evil entities that need to be hated or destroyed. Instead, they recognize that ignorance and unconsciousness are the only true enemies, the underlying causes of so much suffering, and these ignorance and unconsciousness cannot be destroyed by force or condemnation. They can only be illuminated, understood, and ultimately dissolved through awareness. When you truly understand deep in your being that you are not a separate self, you naturally extend that understanding to others. You recognize that the person who is causing harm, who is acting out of delusion or fear, is also not at their core a truly separate self. They are, like all of us, the universe expressing itself, perhaps through a particularly confused, deluded, or painful configuration. But the essential, boundless essence remains the same, an echo of the one life. This recognition does not mean that you condone harmful actions or passively accept injustice. Far from it. It means you are able to respond to them not with reactive hatred, which only perpetuates the cycle of separation, but with a deeper wisdom, with compassion, and with an understanding that seeks to address the root causes of suffering, rather than merely punishing the outward manifestation. There is a quiet strength in responding from this place of unity. And now, as you drift gently, let's consider something else that quietly disappears: the pervasive notion of ownership. The ordinary perception for many is to go through life constantly accumulating things, experiences, and even ideas, and then fiercely claiming them as mine. My house, my car, my family, my country, my opinions, my life. There's a strong sense of possession, of holding on tight. But the awakened person has, with quiet clarity, seen through this intricate game of possession. There's a deep recognition that you don't truly ultimately own anything. You are, at best, a temporary custodian of certain objects, certain experiences, certain relationships for a fleeting period. You arrived in this world with nothing but your pure being, and you will, inevitably, leave it with nothing tangible that you can carry with you. Even your own body, this vehicle of your experience, is not yours in any ultimate sense. It is a wondrous pattern, a magnificent form that the universe is animating and expressing for a while, and then, in its due course, it will gently dissolve back into other patterns, other forms, other elements of the earth. And once you've realized this, once this understanding has settled deep within your awareness, you naturally stop clutching at things with such intensity. You stop trying so desperately to possess and to control what cannot, in its essence, be truly possessed or controlled. This doesn't mean, of course, that you become a pauper, or refuse to use objects, or neglect your responsibilities. It means you relate to things, to people, to experiences, in a profoundly different way. You enjoy them while they are here, while they are present in your life. You take care of them, you appreciate them, but you no longer confuse them with yourself, with your essential identity. You learn, in a beautiful sense, to travel light through life, holding things gently, allowing them to come and go with grace. There is a wonderful lightness that comes from this deep understanding. As your breathing continues its soft, rhythmic flow, another subtle perception fades for the awakened mind. The ability to see events as random or ultimately meaningless. This doesn't arise because they've simply adopted some comforting philosophy that declares everything happens for a reason. Rather, it is because they have directly perceived, in the depths of their being, that the universe is, in its essence, a unified, interconnected whole, a single, vast, intricate event continuously unfolding. In a truly unified system, nothing is truly random, nothing is truly disconnected. Every event is intimately connected to every other event, not always through a simple linear chain of mechanical causation, but through a kind of cosmic resonance, a deep, pervasive interconnectedness, like notes in a symphony. It's not necessarily that everything happens for a specific, discernible purpose that can always be intellectually deciphered or understood by the finite mind. Rather, it is that everything belongs, everything fits, everything is a necessary and integral part of the grand pattern, the ceaseless choreography of existence. Every piece contributes to the magnificent tapestry. When you begin to see this, when this sense of deep belonging settles within you, even the most apparently absurd or tragic events, while still retaining their raw emotional impact, can reveal themselves as interwoven threads in the vast, unfolding dance of life. This understanding does not by any means make painful events less painful on an emotional or physical level, but it often removes the additional layer of profound suffering that often comes from feeling that life is utterly chaotic, utterly meaningless, or fundamentally unjust in a cosmic sense. There's a quiet strength and resilience found in this recognition of inherent order, even amidst apparent chaos. Now, as you drift further into tranquility, another source of incessant mental activity gently dissolves. The need for comparison, the ego, in its constant striving for identity and validation, perpetually measures itself against others. It is always asking, am I as good as them? Or am I better than them? Or how do I rank in the grand scheme of things? There's an endless internal scoreboard, a constant evaluating and judging based on external metrics. But awakening gently reveals that this entire game of comparison is fundamentally based on the illusion of separation. When you truly realize that you are not, at your deepest core, a separate, isolated individual competing against other separate individuals, the entire basis for comparison simply collapses. It no longer holds psychological sway. You're not inherently better or worse than anyone else, because there is no truly separate you to be better or worse than you are simply a unique, unrepeatable expression of the one, boundless life. Just as every wave in the ocean is unique in its form and movement, but never for a single moment separate from the ocean itself. This understanding brings with it a tremendous sense of freedom, a quiet liberation. You can finally stop competing, stop measuring yourself against imaginary standards, stop constantly judging yourself and others. You can simply be what you are, fully and completely, without apology, without the burden of pride, without the constant need for external validation. There's a deep, quiet peace that comes from this authentic self-acceptance. As your mind continues its journey into stillness, the awakened person also quietly loses the capacity to see the future as a place where happiness will finally ultimately be found. The ego, always deferring contentment, is perpetually postponing happiness. It often whispers, "I'll be happy when I get that job, when I find that relationship, when I retire, when I achieve enlightenment." Happiness is seen as a future state, an elusive prize to be chased and caught. But the awakened person has discovered, with quiet wonder, that happiness is not a future state to be attained, or an external condition to be acquired. Instead, it is the natural, inherent condition that gently emerges when you simply stop resisting the present moment, when you cease demanding that reality be different from what it is. You see, happiness is not something that ultimately happens to you. Rather, it is what you already are, when you remove all the self-imposed obstacles, all the layers of resistance, to recognizing what you already are, to recognizing your own fundamental well-being. And those obstacles? They are almost all variations on the pervasive theme of wanting things to be other than they are. When that insistent wanting ceases, not through suppression or forceful effort, but through a deep, quiet understanding and acceptance, what remains is a natural, effortless state of well-being, of contentment, of profound peace. It is a quiet joy that is not dependent on circumstances, but springs from the very core of your being, always present, always available. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, as you continue to relax deeper and deeper, the awakened person cannot truly see themselves as a victim anymore. The victim mentality is deeply rooted in the belief that you are a separate, isolated self, a vulnerable individual at the mercy of forces and events beyond your control. And while it is certainly true that we cannot always control external events or the circumstances that arise in life, awakening gently reveals that you are not, in your deepest essence, actually a separate entity to whom things happen. Instead, you are the happening itself. You are the unfolding of life. When a majestic wave crashes on the shore, we do not say that the ocean is being victimized by the shore, do we? No, because the ocean is the wave, and the ocean is the shore, and the ocean is the crashing, the movement, the entire dynamic process. In precisely the same way, you are not truly separate from the events of your life. You are the life living itself, and therefore nothing is truly happening to you in the sense of an external force acting upon a separate entity. It is all happening as you. It is the spontaneous, continuous unfolding of your being. This, dear listener, is the ultimate liberation, not a liberation from difficult circumstances, for life, in its fullness, will always contain challenge and change. But it is a liberation from the profound illusion that you are a separate, vulnerable self who is at the mercy of those circumstances. When that illusion gently dissolves, when its intricate structures are seen through, what remains is the boundless recognition that you are the entire process, both the delicate waves and the infinite ocean, both the vibrant dancer and the dance itself. And this, my friends, is what the awakened person cannot see anymore. All the elaborate structures, all the intricate mental constructions that the ego tirelessly creates to maintain the illusion of separation, of